All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Invite everyone to please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Jim Dombeck.
Here.
Steve Nelson.
Here.
James Shiloh.
Here.
Julene Davy.
Here.
Michael DeVito.
Here.
Eric Jones.
Present.
Kristen Wren.
Here.
A quorum is present.
I have two changes to the agenda. The first change is under number 4, item 401, Middle School Spartan Awards. We're going to remove that, and we will present those awards when we meet at the middle school. And then, as you know, Jeff Kiker had indicated that he was going to be here to speak with us this evening, but he's unable to make it, so we're going to remove item 8.01, and then we'll just move up items 8.02, 3, and 4 to 1, 2, and 3. Are there any other changes to the agenda as proposed? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call?
Shiloh.
Yes.
Davy.
Yes.
DeVito.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Wren.
Yes.
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item is NIA consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the NIA consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call?
Davy.
Yes.
DeVito.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Wren.
Yes.
Shiloh.
Yes.
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, next item then would be Spartan Awards, high school Spartan Awards.
We're going to start with art, and Dawn Cavanaugh and Aaron DeWitt will be helping to present those awards.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dawn Cavanaugh. I'm the art department chair for K-12, and I've been teaching at Sycamore High School for 32 years. I know, right?
I'm Erin DeWitt. I am a graduate of SHS, but I have been a teacher here for 4 years. And tonight we're here to recognize our students that have received awards at the following events: the NIU STEAM Art Show, the Interstate 8 Art Conference, the Kishwaukee-Collie Juried High School Exhibition, and our students wanted to extend their gratitude to you all for the recognition of their accomplishments, as some of them are here and some of them could not attend due to work obligations and sport obligations.
We'll mention them anyway. NIU hosted their first juried art exhibition from NIU STEAM in the 12th annual STEM Fest. Artists were asked to use, connect, or fuse artwork to science, technology, engineering, and math. This year's theme was Find Your Spark. Congratulations to Mira Rue for winning first place in the high school category.
Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I suppose. She gets it. Go ahead with the group. She should just stay here, right?
Yeah, just hang out, Mira.
Mira, just stay here.
This year, the Interstate 8 Art Conference was hosted at LaSalle, Peru. The 8 schools in our conference were invited to bring 12 pieces each in a variety of categories. Sycamore placed first overall, and we are the 2022 conference champions. All of the work is currently on display in the gallery here at the high school, and I cannot express how extremely talented and dedicated these students are, not only to their techniques and craft, but also to the delivery of their ideas. Congratulations to the following artists that placed in their categories. Please come up when we call your name and we can clap at the end. Cora Early, first place digital. Trista Fioretto, first place textiles. Hope Nordrock, first place sculpture. Mira Rue, first place painting. Charlotte Sharp, first place ceramics. Katie Horn, second place mixed media. Autumn Tomlinson, second place drawing. Brooke Patterson, third place photography. Ella Folman, honorable mention photography. Mia Klein, honorable mention drawing. Kelly Pettit, honorable mention painting. And Miranda Zhang, honorable mention mixed media.
Just gonna take a picture of you guys. Okay, all right. The Kishwaukee Collie Juried High School exhibition includes works from DeKalb, Hiawatha, Indian Creek, Rochelle, and Sycamore High School. We would like to recognize the following students that placed in their categories. Cora Early, Best in Show. Vivian Potts, first place black and white drawing. Molly Sapita, first place sculpture ceramics. Autumn Tomlinson, first place mixed media. Brianna Shamoon, second place black and white drawing. Mira Rue, second place color drawing. Janice Schnertriebe, second place mixed media. Lauren Heil, third place ceramic sculpture. Katie Horn, honorable mention mixed media. And Abby Johns, honorable mention painting. Well, you're fine, get in there. One more.
She went fast to get here.
She can't. Literally ran. Congratulations, everyone.
Next will be Kara Pointer with FFA.
I'm not that tall. Thank you for having us. Once again this year, we have our state degrees to announce this year. We also have a state winner, and we have a Discovery State winner, which is the first in history. So I'm going to start with our state FFA degrees. Combined, these students worked 11,642 hours and earned $36,700 in order. This is a combined total for all of them. It's the highest degree that you can receive in the state of Illinois. So they keep their records on their supervised agriculture experience, and then they sit through a panel of questions. Their application gets sent on state to get approved, and then they will walk across the stage at June convention. So we have Isaac Ward, Kylie Watry, Molly Griffey, Allie Yoakum, Jordan Block, and Samantha Lind, who is a first-year college student who was able to get it this year since she started her ag classes later. You're able to get it 1 year out. So Samantha Lind is at Blackhawk tonight, so she wasn't able to be here. So this is our first group that we want to congratulate, our state degree winners. Oh, Crystal got one. Okay, next I'm going to call up Cole Roach and Drake Slutz. So I'm going to start with Drake Slutz. Drake Slutz is in 8th grade, and since I teach at the middle school, we're able to have the 8th graders start their FFA experience with us. And so this year, Drake kept a book just from August to December, and he competed in the Star Discovery Farmer degree, which is the 8th graders at the state of Illinois. And he won against all of the 7th and 8th graders in the state of Illinois with his record book on sheep production. It is the first one that we've had in Sycamore history, so it's a pretty exciting year for us. Congratulations, Drake. Cole Roach interviewed at the section, along with Drake, the section, the district, and the state level. And Cole was the winner in forest management production. Cole runs a firewood business where he has accumulated over 110 customers. He's sold over 160 face cords with 482 hours of work. So that, along with a 21-page application that we get to do, is going to send him to nationals like Max was able to do a year ago now. So we're hoping for another national top 4 winner with that. So we congratulate Cole Roach in his forest management. He will be recognized on stage in Springfield and then hopefully at National Convention in October. So congratulations.
Cole worked for me a week ago Sunday, dropped off a cord of wood, so excellent service. So next, Scott Mertens with music.
Hello. We've had a very successful return to sort of normal in music this year, and I'm really happy to congratulate many of our students for their incredible work this year. One of the first things we did back in October, our students auditioned for all district and with video auditions, and if they scored well enough, they were then selected for the All-State Festival in late January. And so we had 13 students from Sycamore that were honored in that way. So I'm going to read their names. Rebecca Allen, Daniel Boss, Emily Bukowski, Annabelle Christensen, Sam Crutcher, Chloe Harbeck, Stephanie Kim, Lily Jennings, John Locasio, Ava Peterson, Luke Templin, Rita Wee, and Colin Wunner. Yes, we had 23 other students who were selected for all district as well. I'm not going to read their names at this time. We also had 5 students that attended the ACDA Midwest Region Honors Choir. That's a fantastic number. That was a group that I believe rehearsed and performed in Chicago earlier this year. Those 5 students are Cassie Shamoon, Annabelle Christensen, Dean Farlander, Sam McDonald, and Hollis Schmidt. There's another prestigious quartet competition. This was a string quartet competition that occurred at Northern Illinois University, the Chamber Music Festival. These students were selected by audition, and the quartet members were Rita Wee, Sarah Siddiqui, Emily Bukowski, and Luke Templin. Wave your hands. There you go. We recently had the Interstate 8 All-Conference Band, where members of the Interstate 8, fantastic musicians, got together and performed under guest conductors. Those students who participated in that are Jessica Bolda, Sam Crutcher, Grayson Decker, Aiden Dempsey, Avery DeReuter, Mitch Edwards, Kate Elsner, Emma Fredericks, Cal Harbeck, Chloe Harbeck, Sydney Henson, Bella Juarez, Haley King, Elizabeth McConkey, Jake Rundle, Aiden Sam, Colin Wunner, and Adam Zeller. Congratulations. One more set of individual awards. We recently, back in March, our music students participated in the IHSA Solo Ensemble Festival. As of right now, we unofficially are 3rd in state. We are hoping to hear more in a couple weeks to know officially how we scored as a music department, but that hopefully, anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this is official. These awards official. We had 5 Best of Day awards. These are groups or individuals that performed in the various rooms and were voted the Best of Day. This is very prestigious. Those students were Luke Templin with his cello solo, Emma Fredericks, violin solo, Sophia Das Neves, vocal solo, Charlotte Sharp and Ava Bickner, vocal duet. And brass sextet that you heard just before this meeting was Luke Templin, Conrad Drufke, Lauren Heil, Haley King, Mitch Edwards, and Jessica Bolda. So congratulations. And we recently got word that the orchestra had the highest number of sweepstakes points in the IHSA. We got first place, not just in Class A, but we had the most in any of the classes. So congratulations to the SHS Orchestra for their good work in solo ensemble.
Congratulations. Scott doesn't give enough credit for third place in sweepstakes and first place in orchestra. It's like being a state champion in orchestra and top 3 in the state and so or in the sweepstakes. So like I said, those guys do marvelous work and they're very, very humble. But I want to give a round of applause to all the leaders of these organizations, because without great leadership and all the hard work they put into this, these things don't happen. So please give a round of applause to all the sponsors. That's it for me. Thank you, guys.
Just take a moment to echo Tim's comments and to say congratulations once again to all the award winners. Congratulations to their teachers and sponsors, and congratulations to their parents for putting up with all those practice times and getting them to where they need to go on time and making sure that they stayed on track. So congratulations to all. Next item then is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board this evening? Okay, we'll move on then. Communications, correspondence, informational items, letters and newsletters. We had a ton. FOIA requests, there were none, right, since last meeting. Committee reports.
No planning and zoning this past month, but we did have a grant committee meeting for SEF this morning, and there were 3 grants that are going on to the board. Is it next Monday or the Monday after? We have a board meeting for review and approval. So.
Great. Any other committee reports? The next item then would be Assistant Superintendent for HR.
Thanks, Jim. Tonight, we have the high school team to present on things going on at the high school. So we have Tim Carlson, Mike Rice, and Steve Balster. We have Ag that's going to speak again and hear from some of our students with their Ag Leadership Academy. And then we're going to hear from some of our related services as well. And we have counseling. We have some SLP here as well, social work. So they're going to present on some SEL things that are going around on at the high school. So, Tim?
SEL first. I know at one of the board meetings I was at, I know the middle school presented on some SEL, and it seemed like the mantra was you want to know a little more detail on SEL and the nuts and the bolts of SEL. So I've asked the high school team, social workers, speech path, and counselor to put together a presentation, kind of digging into a little bit more ground level what goes on in SEL at the school level and at the high school. So it'll be Kimberly Duncan, who is one of our social workers, Crystal Templin, who is a department chair for guidance, and Carolyn Huva, who's our speech pathologist, will all be up here speaking. Kimberly is going first.
Hello. I'm Kimberly Duncan. I'm one of the social workers here. So like Tim was saying, in November, Mary Gentile, Jen Cam, and Mary Ellen Spicer spoke to you guys overall about just Tier 1 social emotional information. So those were the initiatives, the lessons that were incorporated into the classroom that the teachers were doing. And then we also collaborate with that with the support staff, and that was across all building levels. So tonight we really wanted to highlight the direct service that we provide to students at the high school who are struggling with a variety of those social emotional stressors, and those who have deficits or disabilities and require more intensive supports. I don't know if do I need to wait for my slide?
Kimberly, you have it right there.
I get to do it? A lot of power.
You're in control.
Oh, so should I just skip these?
Go the other way.
The other way?
Oh, you're right away.
Uh-oh. Oh, here I am. Okay, that was that slide. Okay, so the ISB has 3 social emotional learning standards for all students. We actually have posters that look like the following 3 slides in the hallway that identify those standards. So this one says, I can identify my skills and manage my emotions in order to experience personal success. That's speaking of the first standard, which is to develop self-awareness and those self-management skills so that we can achieve school and then also life success just after we get out of school. Some of those objectives would be like identifying and managing one's own emotions and behavior, recognizing personal qualities and external support, and demonstrating skills related to achieving their goals, whether they're personal goals or academic. Relationships, I can use empathy and communication to establish long-lasting positive relationships with others. So that's about using social awareness and interpersonal skills to establish and maintain positive relationships. Some of those objectives would be like recognizing the feelings and perspectives of others, recognizing individual and group similarities and differences, using communication and social skills to interact effectively, demonstrating demonstrate an ability to prevent, manage, and resolve interpersonal conflicts in constructive ways. Decision-making, I can make healthy decisions to better our community. That is being able to have those decision-making skills and responsible behaviors, both in personal, school, and community contexts. So using ethical, safety, and societal factors to make those decisions, dealing responsibly with academic and social situations, and then just being able to contribute to the well-being of one's school and community. These are social emotional standards that are across all levels. As school social workers, we initiate and support social emotional learning and mental health awareness throughout the educational environment. And that's like the Aaron's Law that we did in February, Connection Campaign, Classroom Push-In, having these posters up to identify the social emotional standards. That's for all students, but as a school social worker, a majority of my time is spent with students who have an identified deficit or a disability in some of those standards. So those students would have a specific goal as part of their IEP, and that's aligned with one of those standards that we were talking about. So between the 3 school social workers at the high school level, we have about 100 students who have social work as part of their IEP. Their services would look like individual services. We've got group sessions that we do. We push into the classroom. We have a lot of drop-ins, so students who are struggling can come to us when they need something. Crisis intervention, so that can be like a risk assessment or a threat assessment if it's a threat of harm to self or others. But also it can just be if a student is really dysregulated in the building or in their classroom, they can come to us and we can help de-escalate that, or we can come to them. We do a lot of staff consultation and support. So if we have a behavior plan, we just did that today. I met with a team to talk about the behavior plan and some strategies, practical strategies they can use in their classroom to deal with our students. And then also parent consultation and support and making referrals to outside services. We also do transition after long-term absences. So if a student is gone for a hospitalization or if they're gone because of a suspension, we'll do a transition plan when they come back to talk about what's going to work best for them as they're back in the building. So as I said, students who have documented deficits can be part of one of our social emotional groups. That would be part of the minutes that are assigned to them in their IEP. So some examples of some groups that we've been doing, social skills and social communication. We co-facilitate those groups sometimes with the speech and language pathologist, and she'll talk a little bit too. We have decision-making groups where we focus on that frustration tolerance and weighing the pros and cons of making choices. Talk about self-regulation. We have anxiety groups, self-advocacy groups, groups talking about executive functioning. Again, these are groups for students who have an identified deficit and have an IEP, and this is part of what we've identified as services for them. We also have classroom lessons that we do for our LEAF and our ABLE classrooms. We'll do like a push-in weekly. So just to remind you, LEAF is learning emotional and academic fundamentals. So that's for students who are identified as having an emotional disability. And ABLE is academic and behavioral learning environment. And that's for students who are identified with having autism, intellectual disabilities, or reduced functional skills. So we'll push into those classrooms on a weekly basis, have a scheduled session for that group. Some of the materials we might use for these groups, we've used social thinking curriculum, zones of regulation, thinking, feeling, behaving lessons, connecting with others lessons, Edpuzzle video clips, everyday speech. So we use a variety of things and kind of piecemeal things together and what would best apply. Sometimes we'll have a scheduled topic and it'll end up talking about whatever it is that the kids really need to talk about that day. And again, those groups are co-facilitated with this speech and language pathologist, especially for social communication. I thought you guys might be interested in just seeing some of the examples of what we are doing with our kids. So on a typical day, I might have individual direct. I actually copied and pasted these from the log that the social workers keep. Obviously, I don't have any identifying information on there, but for 30 minutes, we might push into the stretch intervention period to kind of identify what social interactions a student is having, if that's what they're working on. So this social worker sat at a table with those students where they watched a digital citizenship video that all stretches are watching, and then took part in that discussion and observed how the student was participating in that discussion as well. We might have an individual session talking about perspective taking and empathy. That particular session, we focused on optimism versus pessimism, shifting your mindset and reframing stuff, and then talking about the impacts of their anxiety on their day-to-day functioning. Might have another individual session with a student talking about frustration tolerance. If a teacher is really mad, or a student's really mad at their teacher, talking about what are some appropriate pro-social ways to deal with that frustration and some good coping strategies. We don't need you exploding on your teacher. For 45 minutes, I might speak with another teacher or another student about emotional regulation. If they are really upset about a social situation, helping them to use strategies that calm their body so that they can get on with the rest of their school day. Some of the groups, so in LEAF with our students with emotional disabilities, we had a conversation about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. That lesson, we brainstormed different rewards that might be motivating for these students that they can work towards. In an ABLE group for 40 minutes, they discussed social problem solving. They watched a video and had a discussion about expected and unexpected behaviors. In a group about self-regulation or social communication, we had to review the expectations for self and others during group discussions. So we went again over what is expected when you're in a group and how you're respectful to the people around you and attentive when they're talking. In a social skills or communication group, that was co-facilitated with a speech and language pathologist, and we practiced some reciprocal communication skills. And then some examples of some crises that we deal with. This day we had a 2-hour crisis. It was a suicide risk assessment. So we do that with another person. So that social worker grabbed a counselor so we could do that together. We determined the level of risk, identified the parent to notified them, talked about resources. That student was taken to a hospital where they were hospitalized for a week. And then we also had to schedule the follow-up meeting and fill out all of our paperwork for that. A crisis follow-up if a student was suspended, he came back. We talked about some decision-making, healthier coping skills he can use moving forward. Another crisis might be a DCFS referral. That is the student reporting it to us having to make the report, and then that backup paperwork. Sometimes if a teacher is making that report, we support them through that process. And I think that's all I have. Is that next? Okay, great. So that's a day in the life.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Oh, sure.
The suicide risk assessment, is that a student that just presented themselves and said, I'm having this problem, or was that identified some other way?
So I won't speak specifically to this one just because we don't want to have any identifying information, but we have examples of students who come and identify themselves. I'm having a really hard time having these thoughts. We have students who come forward about their friends. I have a text that my friend is saying this. We've had teachers who see something either in writing or artwork, and they will come and bring it to us. We actually just redid the paperwork for the threat assessments and the risk assessments, and had training with the staff so that they understand kind of the steps to take. We don't want to leave a student alone. We want to make sure we find a staff member immediately that can respond to that. So we have a variety of different ways that they come to us.
Do you see more students coming in as drop-in students?
So we talked about putting that kind of...
COVID or
Yeah, I mean, we talked about having that kind of data in here, but when we were discussing it, we were kind of talking about how data when you're in it is really hard because it's not necessarily a reflection of what's happening currently. If we looked at the totals a year from now about what it was now and what it was pre-COVID, that would probably be good data for us to have. I don't know that we're having, I would say you guys are probably having more drop-ins. And Crystal's going to talk about the more general education students, and so she'll speak more to that. The students that I work with, again, they have documented disabilities, and so that is part of their thing, is that they're going to have situations where they want to drop in and we're their go-to person for that. But she can speak more to the general education population.
are there any patterns that you can discern that we can address even outside just individual counseling or group counseling, for everyone?
I would love if we could address all of the patterns that we're seeing. I think that right now when we try and make referrals to outside counseling, we do have a lot of waiting lists. And I think Crystal will probably speak more to this. We're not a counseling agency here as much as we would love to be. We don't have as school social workers, we're supposed to be focusing on how it impacts them at school. So we want to be able to refer out to these agencies, and they're not always available, and we're kind of filling those gaps right now. Some of those social skills and stuff, I think those are probably gaps that we're trying to fill. And again, she can speak more to some of those patterns, but anxiety, I don't know, would you say anything else to that? We were going to answer questions all together at the end, so I was not prepared.
I guess I maybe asked my question rather inartfully, but what I was saying is if we can identify certain patterns that seem to be manifesting, that maybe we could work into our curriculum somewhere, different ways to, help students get over or get some help that way.
And I think that we've tried to do some things in our intervention time during stretch, and we did have the Teen Truth Assembly. I don't know if you guys would speak to that at all, where we had somebody come in and talk about like the anti-bullying stuff and the culture and having people to come together, because I think that has been a big gap with not being here, and now we're all back and we're expected to kind of mesh. But we're working on, as a building, how can we build that culture back up? And hopefully that would address some of the anxiety and find the commonalities between people who don't know that they're not the only one who's struggling with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Since you're up there?
Can you just clarify, because I guess I'm confused. Do you or your office only see students with IEPs?
So as a school social worker, I only have students who have IEPs on my caseload.
Okay.
So if a student was struggling, they would first go to their school counselor, which is alphabetically assigned, and they would be the ones who would kind of triage that.
So a general education student
A general education
was
student.
struggling, they'd first go to their
Correct.
counselor and then be referred to you if it merited.
So we don't have IEPs for students who only have social work. That would be if they had other things that they were struggling with, like academically, and then social work was a piece of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Did somebody else say they had a question?
Yeah, hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation.
Oh, sure.
What kind of caseload do you see? Because the list you gave, that seems like a loaded day, so I'm just curious.
It is a loaded day. I took this from the log that I share with the other social workers. My caseload is a majority of the LEAF students, so the students who have emotional disabilities. But I would say that we all are seeing a combination of all of that and other things that we probably don't want to put on here because it's identifying for students. But we've got some tough days. Anybody else?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Hi, Carolyn Huva, speech language pathologist at the high school. Thanks for giving me time to talk. It's very lovely that this group acknowledged the work that we do together because we work so closely together. And we're constantly, one of the things that wasn't on there, but we're constantly, it's like a triage, you know. We find out about something and we go to each other and talk about it. In fact, today when we talk about a day in the life, of course, I'm not sticking to anything that I'm supposed to do. I was walking with a student from the ABLE program. That's part of the therapy we do. This particular student isn't highly verbal, and part of our therapy is to take a break and go for a walk. As I was taking this student to the different areas of the building that he prefers, I passed a student on the stairs who was seated in between the passing period. And this is a student who's in the LEAF program and has many, many difficulties in terms of home and their own struggles emotionally. And I stopped him. I stopped and spoke with him and said, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And then, my other student's running up the stairs. It's okay, it's fine. He told me that he had some difficulties at home. I don't want to get into specifics but it was very severe. And I then had to take my student that I was with, continue on with him, and the whole time I'm thinking I need to get to the social worker and get this student help and then also contact family. So was able to get somebody to take care of that student and then went on my way to contact who needed to be contacted. And that was just today. So we had that. We went through that situation with that student and a sibling and then met. So that was a big chunk of the morning and taking care of that. And it's stressful for the team and it's hard. And when you go through that with these kids that you have very close relationships with and you know the struggles that they're feeling, it was, it's nice to have that group to work with. So that's just an example of what occurred today. I'll go through a little bit more of my day quickly. Kimberly said I'll speak quickly. I'm a speech pathologist. It never works that way. I'll do my best. They did talk about the co-treatment with groups. And so Mary Ellen and I and Kimberly worked together to provide social skill, like pragmatic language practice together. We have groups. We also, Mary Ellen and I also go into the ABLE room and work on, she wanted to just talk about that too, the functional adaptive living skills that we do with our students in that program. That's weekly. And we work with them on their job skills, their social language, how to participate with regular ed students and with their own students, and also their emotional regulation. I have to go back to Mary Ellen again, because she wanted me to share a quote that she felt was very important, because I don't think people realize all the time what a speech pathologist does. I think you might think we're sitting in a room practicing R's with students, and at the high school level, that looks really different. It even looks different at the elementary level. And then when we take in the social emotional needs of our high school students, it looks even different. So she loved this quote and wanted it shared. So language is our portal to meaning, making, connection, healing, learning, and self-awareness. When our access to emotional language is blocked, our ability to interpret incoming emotional information is significantly diminished. And that's from Brene Brown. She's a social worker and has a podcast, like everybody. She's quite famous. But that's so important. If the students that we're working with, including our regular education students, aren't able to express what they're feeling, it causes dysregulation, it impacts them academically, and it impacts them socially. So in terms of what Jim was asking about what we see, I have noticed, I don't have data, this is qualitative information, not quantitative. But I have more regular ed students who see me in these collaborative classrooms coming to me and asking for extra help. I push into the science classrooms, which are very, very large right now, or freshmen, and physical science, for example. And I read tests, I help with that, because we're short on some of our para staff to do that, but also some of the kids do have definite difficulties because they missed some school, they are struggling to get back on track because of online learning. And also we have lots of kids wandering the hall, which is another thing. I've noticed regulation issues with students being able to focus and sit in a classroom for long periods of time. We have implemented the supported study hall, which seems to be helping a lot of our students. Plus we have Spartan Stretch. So in terms of my day, quickly, I read tests to the students, that's one thing. Materials modification for the regular ed teachers, we talk about, maybe how a test is worded, how an assignment's worded, and how can we change that. In fact, when I was leaving the building today, the science teacher asked me to help her with a couple of her test questions to reword that. And then I'm talking about that general curriculum support too, where I have had more students come to me because they see me in the hall or they see me in a class and they know that I help people. And they're like, how do I get to come to your room? I'm like, just come in, we'll work it out, it'll be fine. And then that push in lessons and support. So for example, today I pushed into, which is part of my day. Usually on Mondays, I push into the instructional English class. Every Monday, we do a lesson together on vocabulary building and word parts, and the English teacher asked me if I'd come in 10th today because she was short a para and she was starting a new lesson, so I said, of course I would. I did also push into, again, just going through the day. I usually push in on Tuesdays into our instructional social studies class with the wonderful Doug Kelly. And then again, throughout the day, I had regular individual therapy with students, and I had a number of drop-ins, and I also had somebody come to me at the last minute and ask if I could read them a test. So the day is, there's a lot of scheduled things, but there's also a lot of unscheduled things that I just wanted to throw out there. Really quickly, again, talking about emotional dysregulation and language disorders connection. This is something to make note of in terms of social emotional learning, that adolescents in contact with the youth justice system are likely to have severely compromised oral language skills, receptively and expressively. So I know that this is a heavy piece of information. We know about this, but I also want everyone to be aware that when we have students in our LEAF program, or not, that we're paying attention to these things that impact their ability to emotionally regulate. And we know that students that are involved in some of the problems that they're having at school and outside of school, that it is directly related to their language skills. And there's a lot of research to support it, it's just something that isn't well known. So just the idea that if you're dysregulated, it's difficult to access your curriculum and also your emotional language to communicate how you're feeling. And then when that happens, there's behaviors, but those behaviors are communication. So sometimes I help with that. All right, last one, then I'll be quiet. A very important one in terms of ELL, some of the students who have moved into our area that are from just like Chicago, are from the surrounding suburbs of Chicago. When you come to a place, like even me, when you drop me into Sycamore, however many years it was when I started working here as a person from Chicago, it was like culture shock. It really was. So students who move here have a little bit of culture shock when they are American. So if we have a student move in from another country, there's that other piece of being able to understand the language and process it, but also this quick quote from ASHA too, the acculturation of students from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds is achieved primarily through the process of language socialization. So, for example, quickly, I have a student who is from another country, and they were working in his English class on Shakespeare. He's bilingual. English is a second language. Regular English-speaking people do not understand Shakespeare. So trying to go through that with him and also talking with the teachers about maybe some different types of assignments to attach to that particular lesson. And even a poem from Amanda Gorman, who's absolutely wonderful. We went through the poem, but he doesn't understand the references because he isn't, there was many Christian references, which just happens not to be how he was raised, and also American references. So when we have to look at, when you have a European background from the United States, you understand what's presented with the curriculum with more ease than somebody who's from someplace else. So I try to work with the ELL teacher and also the students themselves to work through those. And I have the group of students that were new to Sycamore in like 7th grade, 6th grade, so they had to deal with the pandemic and being new. I have a lunch group of students who come and hang out with me, so that's been really great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to take a quick time out because there's a student we need to recognize who's here tonight. So Susanna Martin, if you would come on up, please. Susanna is being recognized tonight because of some pretty amazing academic accomplishments. She scored a perfect score on the ACT and is also a National Merit Scholar, which means she scored in the top 1% on the National Merit Scholar qualifying test. So we're super proud of Susanna and want to make sure we recognize her tonight. Congratulations to you and to your family.
Well done, congratulations.
So good evening, my name is Crystal Templin. I am the School Counseling Department Chair for Sycamore High School. When I was hired here, I took Julian Davies' spot in the counseling office, so it's nice to be speaking to her tonight and all of you. So I just want to talk on behalf of my department. We have 3 counselors, Mrs. Mary Grimes, Jackie Kirchman, and myself. And just want to talk a little bit about the supports that we provide for all of our students at the high school. Kimberly Duncan talked about social work, which encompasses a caseload of about 100, as she said. So the other 1,000 plus are served through the school counseling office, but we work in conjunction with all of our teachers, with our social workers, with our school psych, speech path. We work with everyone in order to help meet those needs. So just want to talk about the 3 facets of a school counselor. So some people think of us in one area, but there's 3 main areas that we focus on with students. One is academic, the other social emotional, and the third one is college and career. So at any time in our day, we are dealing with all 3 of those categories and trying to help serve students in all of those areas. So gone is the language of guidance. That really was when I think of my guidance counselor from high school, where it was really focused on course selection. We certainly do that. We help all of our students in the entire school help pick out courses and thinking down the future and getting them enrolled in classes, but that's a very small part of our job. So what we do in the school counseling department is we have access to all students in large group presentations. We do orientations every fall with our groups of students. So I'll meet with every student A through G. That is my caseload at the high school, so anyone with last names A through G. The other counselors will meet with their groups. So they're about groups of 100 at a time. We do orientations in the fall. We do course selection in the spring. We go and we do classroom presentations. We talk to seniors about scholarships and resume building. We go into consumer classes, talk about saving money for college and planning and loans and all that sort of thing. We do college prep events for 11th and 12th graders and their families in the fall. Just general presentation. That is a tier 1. Every one of our students gets those presentations. But then beyond that, we have all of our students are able to access the counseling office. We pride ourselves on being accessible. Students, since we got email, since I started here, that has been a huge change in being able to meet with students and set up meetings. They will email us, hey, can I meet with you? When is your study hall? When can we meet? I'm free. Our counseling office is open generally at 7 a.m., well before contract time, and we're usually here till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we basically have a half an hour lunch in there. So we try to be very accessible for students to come in based on whatever their concern is or whatever they need to talk to us about. We try to have students come in before or after school lunch or study hall, so they're not missing class. But obviously, if there's a crisis or something we're dealing with, those crises that Kimberly talked about, like a suicidal assessment that we need to do with a student or some sort of crisis, we are available at any point. Teachers will allow students to come down to us. So a majority of our contact with students is in a large group format, and then with individualized meetings with students beyond that. But we have done some smaller groups for different topics, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So I just want to review, Kimberly showed you those posters, the colorful ones that are hanging up in the hallway. Those really touch on these social emotional learning standards. And there's 3 main standards and these are the state standards for the social emotional learning. But what I want to point out on the slide here is that the first one develops self-awareness and self-management skills to achieve school and life success. So it's really important to know that C under number 1, demonstrate skills related to achieving personal and academic goals. Every time that we are meeting with a student, it is social emotional learning. So someone might think, well, you just help me with my schedule. But as we have that conversation about a schedule, it's what's down the road, what is your plan, how are you going to get there, how are you planning to achieve those goals, and how can we help you with that? That is social emotional learning. Some people think of social emotional learning as you're dealing with the mental health, with anxiety and depression. That is definitely part of our job and what we do, but even planning out how to take dual credit classes, how to get you signed up for that, how to find money to pay for college, how to fill out the FAFSA. That is all helping our students achieve the goals for what their next steps are, and that is part of those social emotional learning standards put out by the state. So what does this look like? For example, in the fall, we do these group presentations for all of our seniors, talking through what they need to be thinking about, what's coming next. And that's not just college, it's college and career. But after that, we're in the classrooms, talk about resumes, like I said before, finding scholarships, how to use our Naviance program that is an amazing tool that is supported by our district, and we're so thankful for that program. And then we meet individually with every single one of our seniors because the big information is put out there. Now, how can I help individualize that for you and what your goal is? Because every one of our seniors has a slightly different plan and it's a different way of getting where they want to go. So that's an example of how that works, tier 1 all the way down to individual. Same thing with something, for example, like Aaron's Law presentation. It is required, everyone in our school receives that. And yet we are there for individual meetings for students who are needing to do some follow-up and have further questions or needing to discuss that. We would meet individually with students. So at any time, if you guys are welcome to come to the counseling office. It can be crazy on some days because, and anyone who works at the high school knows, there's days where we are just spinning. I think you said it sounds like a loaded day, and that feels like a lot of days, really, in the counseling office. We could have someone sitting out waiting to talk to us because they're having some severe anxiety in the classroom, or there's things going on at home, they need to talk to us about that. And right next to them is someone needing to get information on a scholarship or ask you for a letter of recommendation. And the next one is, I'm struggling in the classroom, I'm failing a class, how do I help get a handle on that and start putting a plan together in order to be successful in that class? So all of those social, emotional, college and career and academic, they could be sitting there and we are just meeting with them, trying to address those needs every day. So every one of our days is different. And to be honest, there's some days that we're just trying to keep above water, trying to help those students. Because as you can see, 3 counselors at the high school, 2 at the middle school, and our approximate caseloads are 400 students for each one of us. So the American School Counseling Association recommends a ratio of 1 counselor to 250 students, and we have 400 students that at any time could be a 2-hour risk assessment that we need to do. If you think about all the concerns that could go on with 400 students, that's at any given time. That's a lot on the plate of 1 counselor. Because the other issues are, and Tim's going to be talking about innovation and how we've grown as a school and different things we offer for our students. Every time there's new dual credit, back in the day there was no dual credit. Well, every one of those students needs to be tested, we need to get them registered, we need to get them to KISH. That all is under our department as well. AP testing, we're the AP coordinators for every kid who's taken an AP test. So all those fall under our category. So to have 400 students plus all that, it's a lot. So what we actually did for this presentation, we looked at our caseload of 400, and we labeled them for different categories. So one was kind of, we meet with these students in the universal way. We do those individual meetings after the large group. And 50% of our students kind of fall in that category. 33% are targeted, which could mean I just found out, partway through the year that my mom has cancer and I need someone to talk to about that. I was in a car accident. I was hospitalized. I'm just having some severe anxiety and I need some supported help. So that could be like a smaller period in their life where we're giving them extra support, trying to help them get back on track. And we'd say that's kind of a level 2. And then the third group is 17% that if we look at our caseload, we see those kids regularly all year. Each one of us has a caseload of 504s that we manage that's over 20 students alone that we're a case manager for. Those would generally fall under that. We have some IEP students that also need intensive support, but just other students that just need someone to talk to on a regular basis. So that kind of gives you an idea. About 50% of our students we are meeting with on a more regular basis or come and go throughout the year depending on what the situation is. There are some students in that 50% that tomorrow could now become a student that I see regularly because of a family situation that just happened. So that really can change on any given day, that if a student needs that support, we help them give that support. But to Kimberly's point that she said earlier, we are not a mental health center. Our job is not to be therapists. We are not capable to do that within the confines of school. My training is a marriage and family therapist. That is my certification, and I have worked in that setting, but that is not what I am hired to do by Sycamore High School. I am not a therapist. So when we have students who need that support, we work with local agencies to give that support, to find that support. But generally a general ed student does not want to have therapy during the day and then go to your next period and take a US history exam. That's something that in the community we get them connected to and get that extra support, but that's not our job. It's more giving them individual support as we can to help them be successful in the school. So this gives some examples of targeted support of how we help students. Individual sessions, so it's under social emotional. We meet a lot with individual students. I just think through my day today and all the different topics and conversations that I have. So individual sessions with the counselors. So sometimes we have had some groups. I know that's probably a conversation is, do you guys ever do groups? So we have done some different groups. We've done some art therapy. We've done some like girls empowerment groups. But to be honest, some of those small groups, the logistics of getting a group together, think who all has a similar concern that's willing to be in a group and share that, that I'm not going to get pulled out for all these different reasons or have maybe a community agency come and need to sign a release of information. By the time you do all that to get a group together for short term, In some ways, individual meeting with that student can be more effective and be able to address that individual need right there. We do check-in, check-outs. Crisis intervention, we work with the social workers for those risk assessments. We have students who are hospitalized. We work with the hospital. We transition them back to school. General topics that we see are conflict resolution, just personal mental health concerns, anxiety, depression. And then there's a list of some of the groups we've offered. And then we work with our local agencies to make referrals to families, to try to get them in. If they need ongoing regular meetings for therapy, we make referrals. Then under academic supports, we do intervention. We do regular grade check-ins with some students. We run an F list every Monday morning. That's the first thing I do when I get to school on Monday morning, looking at which students are struggling and how we can help them. And then parents who are calling us and teachers who are concerned and looking at how we can help with that. We've done study skills groups and new student groups in the past. Supported study halls, someone mentioned we just got those started. Those have been very successful, identifying students who could, if they have a study hall, we put them in with a teacher to get supported help, saying, okay, what are you missing? What do you need to focus on? That's actually been very successful. We do 504 support, like I mentioned. We have 20 plus students on our 504 caseloads. And then just individualized academic planning. Where are you planning to be and how can we help you get there? And then finally is college and career support. Just yesterday, we had a Kish One Stop. That means Jackie Kirchman took 30 students over to Kish who might not otherwise have made it over to that campus, and they got enrolled, met with a counselor, did their placement testing, picked their classes. So those are ways that we actually took them on a bus and got them all set up for college for next year that might not have otherwise found their way over to Kish. Having college visits here, we set those up. Students can access those and find out about them in Naviance. We are in charge of all dual credit, AP, career tech through KEC, support and planning for all those. Trying to help them figure out their plans, whether it's military, trades, or college. Helping them explore opportunities. So sometimes I know a student that wanted to be a realtor and didn't really know much about it, so I found a realtor friend in the community and we did a Google Meet and did an interview. That kind of thing, getting them connected to people in the community to learn more about different careers. Scholarships, I spend a lot of my time right now. I'm the scholarship coordinator for Sycamore High School, working with donors, working with students, trying to help get all that put up into Naviance. So students, we have a very generous community. We give away a lot of money from the community to our seniors, which is an amazing opportunity. And then the short-term groups, we've done a first-generation college group, employability schools, and students looking at the military. And finally, this is not all-consuming, but just some general ideas, resume building and helping with letters of recommendation, how to do that. So this just gives you a little bit of we always joke about making a to-do list or things that we do in our office because we feel like it would just keep going on and on. So that's a lot, but it just gives you a little snapshot. All of those are social emotional learning because it's helping kids prepare for their future and what's coming next. All right. I'm guessing you might have a few more questions. I know some of the questions you were asking earlier to Kimberly, she's a social worker working specifically with special ed students, but if you have any other questions that you have specifically for me, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So something that came to my attention was a student need, so there's a situation, I guess, where you can have students who are really focused on a GPA, and so in having that focus, they will not take classes that aren't weighted or AP courses because it may affect that GPA. Mm-hmm. Now, more diving into this, you can talk to the teacher, and I think you can maybe enroll in the course, but not have it count as credit or something like that. I don't know if the system is built for, I guess my question is, how do you address that with a student? Is that something that you see as a growing concern? And kind of in a bigger picture, how do you see our school, and what is your opinion on moving away from
Val-Sal?
Yeah, maybe going into something from standards-based grading.
Well, we have talked, I know it's been talk, probably even when Julian was in my position about going away from Val-Sal. I know there's tradition, but I think what you're talking about is some students not wanting to take an unweighted course because everything else they're in is weighted, and the person next to them that they're close in rank is taking all the weighted courses. So, and Tim has said this for years. You have a kid who wants to go into engineering, but they've never taken any hands-on kind of class where they're going to be building something, or even some positive things have come out of that of we have honors music. So there's honors portions of certain classes where you can take it for that 0.5 weight that helps students who maybe in the past would have just, you have to decide, do I still take music even though I don't get an honors credit for that? So Tim's going to talk about all the extra honors and ways that we have actually amped up opportunities for honors, AP, and dual credit. But personally, when you look at Val-Sal, you're just looking at number 1 and 2. And anyone beyond that, you're not even mentioned or talked about or anything. I personally would prefer to go to a more, not necessarily a true ranking, which a lot of my fellow counselors are saying at their school. And when I fill out forms, they say, if you rank, because they know a lot of schools don't rank, it might be you're in the top 10% or a percentile, but not necessarily number 1 and 2. But I know people have different opinions about that because the valedictorian speaks at graduation, or do you just have someone who's voted on to give a speech? But speaking personally, that Thursday before awards night, when we have to calculate Val-Sal, and we are like, when someone says, when am I ever gonna use this math again? We are hand calculating everyone's GPA to double, triple, quadruple check those number 1s and 2s. And we have to have it so that they know to start writing that speech. So there's a lot of pressure when it comes to that Val-Sal, but I think it speaks to what you're saying as some students want it. Maybe they'd like to take this class that they're interested in, but they don't want it to affect their GPA, and so they shy away from that. That's just my opinion. That would make that Thursday before graduation a lot less stressful in my department. Yeah, and I need grades from those teachers immediately because we have to do that calculation and double check everything, so, yeah.
I would ask you the same question that I asked earlier, which is, have you seen, post-COVID now, any kind of discernible patterns that are arising from the students that tend to drop in?
You know, what's interesting to me is, for some, yeah, so we talked about anxiety. You know, that's a pretty common conversation, right? And yet I have a student who actually has like panic disorder and was home during COVID, and being back at school has been the best thing for her. So that student, you know, that wasn't affected by that. Actually, coming back to school has been, when I talked to all my seniors in September, I asked every single one of them, how are you doing? What are your thoughts about being back at school? I think I had one student say, I wish I was still remote learning. The other 99 were happy to be back at school. And even the ones that I was concerned, to be honest, when we were coming into this fall, one of my biggest concerns was anxiety in students. Because we saw some students try to come back, you know, when we had the option of come back or stay remote. Some students tried to come back, and then it was like, nope, I'm going remote. And so my concern in the fall was, what are we gonna do with these students who now it's not a choice, which I agree with, I want them back in this building, and was just surprised how many were able to do it. I think when they didn't have that choice to be able to go remote, they were actually able to be here, and they realized this is a better place for me because my teachers are right here, teachers can see them, teachers can interact with them, you can't hide on a screen. So it's hard to say, Jim, because some people that I thought would have more anxiety being back in school, it actually was a better situation. But is it true that I have students who are having some big anxiety? Yeah, but we've also always had that. So it's hard to differentiate what's COVID related. I feel like in the last several years, even before COVID, those suicide assessments that we were doing, we felt like those were really on the rise, even back, anything we didn't even know about COVID back then. So Yeah, anxiety, depression, those are all the mental health things are definitely out there, but it just affects each student differently. So,
So you would be saying that they remain fairly constant?
yeah, what I hear more is teachers talking about students not being as prepared in the classroom as far as being a student. I think that's a big topic that we're dealing with a lot is, okay, so if you get behind, instead of just kind of shutting down, how do you communicate with that teacher? How do you start making a plan to get moving forward? How do you take notes in a classroom? You know, how do you stay engaged when things get hard? So I think some of that is just learning to be a student, and I would hear from our teachers, because a lot of what we get for referrals, it's parents calling us, it's teachers contacting us, it's friends dragging their friends down to us, are just saying, hey, I just don't feel like maybe this group of certain grade level is as prepared as in the past, and it's maybe because they were at home learning in a whole different way. So sitting in a classroom, taking notes, that's something that they just hadn't had as much experience under their belt. So teachers are kind of having to step back and reteach some of that stuff. So definitely there's impacts of COVID, but again, it feels very individualized based on each student that we're talking to.
Other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Kara Pointer wants to go next, even though it's not on the agenda in that order, but
I think it said academy next, flip to the
on
next slide.
on mine, but not on the board, agenda. We'll let you go. No, go.
These children are looking at me like, how long am I going to be here? No. I just want to say that I worked with all three of these people in one day, yesterday and today. Okay, so I see them, they do their job, they find me, we find each other. So I thank them from me and all these kids, because part of my senior academy is asking for letters of recommendation, filling out scholarships, and seeing their counselors. So I'm sorry for the last minute ones that I yell at them to do and then they come. So yeah, I just want to go really, I won't talk long. This is about the students and not about me. I just want to focus a little bit on the 24 partnerships that are up there, and then they're going to touch on the other 20 that they're going to do with the job shadowing. So that's about 42 to 45 different community partners that we've made just this year with this class. And so that's something that I'm really proud of. I work really hard with that. I try to change it based on what their interests are for the year. You know, we come in and talk about what do you want to do. So they've sat through a presentation that was, Tracy Hooper, for example, she's a proton therapy specialist, and she deals with cancer stuff, but that was more focused for somebody like Sarah Ward. And Isaac sat there and he listened and got something out of it too. So they're all different. I want to make sure that we hit something, but we were able to visit new businesses in town like TechWeld. We worked with Chris Mayer at Innovative Growers, so I think it's great that we have these new businesses coming in and they see who we are, we can see who they are. And so that's something that, like I said, I pride myself on. I really enjoy working in the community with these people and forming the relationships that we do with the students. So I'm going to let them talk. They really love questions, right, guys? So I think Cheyenne Judd's going to go first.
Hi, I'm Cheyenne Judd. A little bit about myself, that next year I'm attending Blackhawk East. It's an agriculture community college, 2 hours away from here. While I'm there, I will be pursuing my associates in agribusiness and will be a part of their 2-year career program. This program allows me to internship somewhere new every semester. And last month, we got the option we were made to do job shadowing. But I went to Maplehurst Farms in Rochelle, and I was able to meet with multiple different women who all have different responsibilities, and I especially enjoyed talking with Amber Bolander about her daily life as an agronomy manager. This month, we'll be going on our second job shadowing, which mine will be taking place at Huber Feeds. I really do enjoy this class because it pushed me out of my comfort zone to go and job shadow for 6 hours at a place I've never been to and with women I've never met before. I got to work on my people skills and how to talk to others. And it also prepares us on how to be in an actual college class. We only meet 2 days a week, And most of the time, we're out on tours at these places, so we don't get in classroom time to work on things. We have to do this all at home. And if you have any questions about myself or where I'm going to college, I would like to answer them.
Hi, everybody. My name is Molly Griffey, and I am a student in Miss Pointer's Ag Academy class. I plan on attending Kishwaukee Community College in the fall for my general education classes and transfer to NIU to study elementary education or law enforcement. I haven't decided yet. I had the opportunity to partner with a DeKalb police officer, Sadie, for the day. During this time, I learned about her normal day as a police officer and what you have to do to become one. I even got the opportunity to sit in the dispatch center and listen to calls come in. For my next job shadow, I plan on reaching out to Dakota Ingledow, a DeKalb County Conservation Police Officer, to learn more about what he does in a day. I'm also a teacher assistant in Miss Huber's third grade class at Southeast Elementary School. I'm there for about 2 hours, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I help the kids with reading and math. I'm still undecided on what I want to do in the future, but Miss Pointer's class is better preparing me to make that decision. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emmy Kuhn. I plan on attending Kish College while taking online classes to be a certified dog trainer. I had the opportunity to job shadow at Huckleberry's Pet Parlor with the owner, Jenny Kingren, and I saw all the inner workings and how they run things there. This class has better prepared me for the future and helped me get a better idea of what I might want to do in the future.
Hi, my name is Lorelai Darlak. My plans for the future is to attend Kishwaukee College and get a certificate in interior design. I had the opportunity to job shadow Frank Cooney Company with senior sales rep John Murtaugh. This job is in the right direction of what I want, but I want to work with more homes and they only do schools. One thing I learned from ag business is hearing the different experiences of first-time college students.
They're the company that we use to do a lot of our design for schools. So they actually drove from Villa Grove, I think, and there was 4 of them that came to school to meet with her. So that was really, really nice of them to do that.
Hi, my name is Miranda Wilbur. I plan to start cosmetology school at Debutantes in June of this year. I just decided this like a week ago, so it's really new. Once I graduate from Debutantes, I plan to work at a local salon downtown called MC Beauty. Then I will further my education onto social media marketing at a college not decided yet, and this will be to grow my clients through my beauty industry. My job shadow last month, I worked with Lindsay Ray Photography out of DeKalb. This really helped me show the importance of taking photos for your business and really putting your business out there. My next job shadow will be at Debutantes School to learn the behind the scenes of teaching cosmetology, because I may go into that at some point. From this class, I have learned many things about local businesses and what Sycamore has to offer.
Hi, my name is Sarah Ward. My plan for the future is to attend Kish College and get my associates in nursing and become an RN. In Ms. Pointer's class, I had the opportunity to job shadow Brad Slutz, a financial officer at Compeer Financial, and Brett Deents, a crop insurance agent. I got to learn about their jobs and about Compeer, like in the company. My upcoming job shadow will be with a nurse, and these job shadows have and will help me decide between ag business or nursing. And I would just like to thank Ms. Pointer's class for helping me better prepare for my future and bettering myself through that process.
Hi, my name is Heidi Wood, and I am taking Ag Academy with Ms. Pointer. I'm going to NIU in the fall, and I'm planning on majoring in finance. This class gave me the opportunity to get insight from Sally Bruck, who is a certified financial planner at her business, Crane Bruck Insurance and Financial. My second option is accounting, so I'll also be shadowing a CPA soon. This class has allowed me to hear about so many career paths and people's college experiences and advice. Our class also went to the NIU School of Business, which helped me confirm my future plans. I also want to thank Ms. Pointer for helping our class make goals for college and our careers.
Hi, I'm Isaac Ward. I'm a senior in Ms. Pointer's Ag Academy class. Next year I'll be attending University of Wisconsin-Platteville to study agriculture business management. So my job shed this year, I went with Lyndon Gord. He's the president of the DeKalb Implement Company, and I shadowed him on a day in his normal life as the president of dealership. So we did everything from installing 4G on his tractors to installing a GS3, which is their Green Star system, all the way to buying and trying to resell a Gator. So that really gave me a lot of insight into the ag business side. My next job shadow, I'm going to be with Nathan Olds. He's the CEO of Storm Trap out in Romeoville. Because my secondary major at Platteville, if I don't do ag business, is construction management. I've really appreciated this class because even though we haven't done a lot of agriculture related tours, we've done a lot of just general tours. We've learned a lot of life skills. So I feel like those have helped prepare me to narrow down my career path.
Hi, I'm Joshua Lindgren. My plans for next year are to stay working at my current job, which is at Marty and Sons Body Shop at 1120 East State Street, with Andy Didio, which was my first job shadow, and which I later got a job at because I enjoyed my job shadow so well that I was like, why not get a job? I plan to either go and get further into that business of the body shop work or go into hands-on work in the trades. And I have to figure out where I'm at. I enjoy Ag Academy because it helped me expand my horizon and learn plenty of new opportunities, and that's why I love this class and Ms. Pointer as my teacher.
Hi, I'm Trevor Blanken. I plan to attend the University of Missouri in the fall to study mechanical engineering and industrial design technology. For my first job shadow, I shadowed Trevor Fields over at Ideal Industries, and he kind of took me through a day in his life and what he did to get to where he is. He works in the product design development, which is kind of what I want to get into. So it was nice to learn how he got there and what I might need to get there. Through this class, we got to visit a lot of the new and upcoming businesses around town, and it kind of helped me see what career I may or may not want to get into. So, thank you.
So thank you for letting us come tonight. I think it's great. This is something I tell them the first day of classes, that they have to speak at a board meeting, and they fret about it all the way up until this night. So we practiced today, and they thought that was even crazier that I made them practice speaking before we spoke, but we did. So thank you for having us, and if you have any questions or if you ever want to come with us somewhere, let me know, and you're always welcome. We're going to upstaging next week on the 20th because we're starting a partnership with the TV production and the welding and my class, and they're hoping to get some kids right in there to work. Chuck Spector's been working with us, and they're going to be set up for Thomas Rhett and 9 Inch Nails. So that'll be a really fun tour that day. We're going to take about 30 kids with TV production and welding and these seniors here. So that's a partnership, another one that we're really trying to start. Chuck came in all excited. He wants to get kids in, wants to figure out how they can steal the kids before they go somewhere else. So Mr. Carlson is going to go with us that day. If anybody else wants to go, let us know, and we're happy to take you along. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
The practice paid off. They all did very well.
Oh, thank you. Do you have any questions for me or them or anybody? No? Okay.
Thank you.
I know at every board meeting, we seem to be a lot of conversation about innovation, so I thought we'd talk a little bit about innovation tonight. To me, innovation is not a shiny new object or a shiny new thing. It should come out of a need. A lot of innovation that's happened in this world has came out of needs. It should be purpose-driven, and there should be a reason why. So, why are we going to innovate? Why are we going to change? Why are we going to do new things? We know it's a process, and the process and the anticipation sometimes excites a lot of people to want to do new things and take risks. And one thing we're finding all the time, we need to make sure we have structures to support innovations. COVID pulled a lot of attention away from things we were doing, so some of the things I'll talk about tonight are things that we've had to stop or got stopped through COVID. Hopefully we'll bring some of those back. Some of those probably we don't need to bring back, and some of those I'll mention that we've already stopped and why. Any innovation done in this building, the majority of the work is done by the teachers. I said we can come up with the ideas, work with teachers to come up with ideas. We find the reason why we need to do it, but people like Kara Pointer and the other teachers in this building do the heavy lifting and make things work. So some really simple things. You know, something as something as simple as after school and Sunday night tutoring. For a while, we had a group of kids in our trailer park who struggled, one with internet, struggled with food, sometimes struggled with electricity. So we set up after-school tutoring programs with transportation for them. We also set up on Sunday night so they could come in and we provided transportation back then. We'd have a bus go to the trailer park, pick the kids up, bring them here. We would feed them. We'd have pizza for them. We'd have tutors here for them so that they could get the supports they could need to be successful. So that may seem like something very simple, and I don't know if that's very innovative, but I think it was needed. There was a why. We could identify that group of kids that were struggling academically, and we knew the reasons why, and we were able to take care of those things. Professional learning communities has gone from the high school to district-wide. Again, not working in isolation. I always try to think of analogies to explain to people. So today I said, well, what if the board all had to operate independently? You never got to meet together as a group. You never got to come every, two Tuesdays a month. You had to just stay where you're at and try to run a school district. Probably be impossible. Same thing in teaching. The teachers need to be together. Spartan Stretch, we knew kids needed more support. Teachers came up with the why and developed the process for the intervention period. Double block math, why? Again, kids needed more support in math. There's a core group of kids who can do math. They just can't do math necessarily at the same speed as everybody else. I think everybody can learn. We know that everybody can learn. They just don't all learn at the same pace. 0-hour offerings. Some kids want to take more classes. Initially, 0-hour offers opportunity for kids to take more classes. Also, sometimes fits better into the life of a teacher. If they want to be here in the morning, they get to leave a little bit earlier. It helps their life. Learning Readiness PE. Again, we knew a core group of kids who struggled. We did the research behind it. We had that going. We have very good data that supported it. In the end, after a number of years, we couldn't get parents to support it. They did not want to put their kids in that program and bring them here. So that program died. Not that we won't revisit it again, but we had great data that supported it. CRIS strategies, a way again to support teachers with different teaching and learning strategies. We need to revisit that. That was very effective. Some of our teachers still use those strategies. Form and LEAF programs to support some of our special education students. Seal of Biliteracy just kind of validates the work that we've done in our foreign language program, and it's more of an award than necessarily innovative practice, but it does support that and those kids do go on and get college credit for that. Was mentioned earlier, supported study hall we put back in this year, which we take kids out of a normal study hall environment and put them in a more quiet environment with a teacher who's willing to work with them. Kara Pointer is one of those teachers who works with those students. Dual credit courses, we went from 0 dual credit courses to 12. We had 727 college credits in 21-22 through a CTE program, 291 college credits, expanded AP offerings from 4 classes to 11. Again, what's the why? Our kids are leaving here with college credits. Some leave with almost their entire freshman year of college taken care of at a very economical price. So we expanded honors courses for reasons you heard tonight. We have cookies and cram final study groups where we bring the kids together, lessen their anxiety. We have teachers who work with kids right before finals. We have food for them. Make it more of a celebration type atmosphere rather than them worrying about their finals. We've opened up 7 blended courses where kids get to learn at their own rate and teachers get to work with kids more individually. If kids know the information, we talk about one of the 4 pillars of the PLC. What do we do if they know it? They don't necessarily have to come to class that day. They have an enrichment activity outside of the class. The kids who don't know it are there working with a teacher. We've opened business, manufacturing, ag, education, and health academies. We've struggled to keep those all alive because of some of it's the support systems we talked about. Some of it's just flat out finding a person who can teach it in the community or the businesses that will work with us. We talked about we've implemented flex periods where students, juniors and seniors, don't have to come first period if they have a study hall, can leave early if they have a study hall at the end of the day. So we talk about, well, we need to change the school day for students because high school kids need more sleep. Well, if a kid wants to sleep in, they can put themselves into a flex period, first period, and come start the day second period. Rather than being warehoused in a study hall, they can flex their day. People who want to work and want to have that last period of the day off, they can ask for a flex period that time. Move finals before the holiday break. I thought it was always educational malpractice to give the kids a test that was worth 20% of their grade after not being in school for 2 weeks. And also, I think it helps family life in the community where parents and kids aren't stressed about finals over the holiday break. Senior allowance was basically a flex period during the day. We explored mass customized learning years ago. Mike Rice was one of the ones back when he was teaching here years ago. At that point, budget-wise, we weren't able to afford the computers to implement it the next year. We brought 8th grade visits, help with transition. The YES program was a program we still use at times where we bring outside agencies in to work with kids, especially in the counseling setting where kids either can't get transportation to a counselor, won't get transportation to a counselor, parents can't do it because of their job schedule. So there's an agreement that has to be signed, but the outside agency comes in here and provides counseling in the school for the students. We had the school accounts program for a while where we worked with businesses where as part of the hiring process, the student had to have recommendations from teachers to get hired at the business. The YMCA was one that worked with us. They also had we had to send the YMCA the list of the kids' tardies, their absences, discipline referrals, all those type of things, making the student understand that school counts when you leave here to go get a job. College visits to NIU and Kish, we make sure every student is on 2 college campuses before they leave here. Again, the academies, we went away from enrichment speakers, lack of attendance on our own students, but we used to bring in every Thursday morning. We'd have speakers in here on all different careers. So they'd have about 32 different speakers that would come in and talk. School store helps teach soft skills. We had the Sycamore Film Festival, which a lot of time were our own graduates who are out working in Los Angeles or Hollywood, come in and talk about careers and actually show a product they presented. Communication, we started the Monday Messenger. We had the Spartan Senate. Before COVID, we had the Faculty Forum, which is just a meeting with our faculty where they determine the agenda. I don't determine the agenda. We talk about what they want to talk about, not what I want to talk about. Breakfast Club, which is a problem solution meeting where a piece of paper up with a T-bar, problem solution. You can't come to the meeting with a problem unless you come with a solution. And we try to discuss what we can do to fix that. Technology, we were the first school in the district to go one-to-one as a school. Canvas went from, like I said, a 3-year rollout to a 3-week rollout. Innovation had to occur for us to get through COVID. Online learning courses forced into that through COVID. We're going to try to do that more structured now. Twitter, Spartan Minute, Spartan TV. Recognition programs for a lot of reasons we've talked about before. I want to bring alumni back in here. I want to recognize people for what they do and have done. So Music Boosters Hall of Fame, Freedom Isn't Free display, Distinguished Alumni display. Our Alumni Association we started, Academic Achievement Awards, Art in the Hallway, and Seal by Literacy. So I would say a lot of those are things that have been innovative. Things we would like to do in the future, plan those academies with some sustainable structures. If you listen to the experiences those kids have leaving here, the Ag Academy, I think that's some of the best stuff we do. And again, we had that in manufacturing, where kids were getting hired right out of manufacturing into Ideal and into DriveLock. We had it through the Health Academy at times where kids got great exposure. We had plenty of kids who went into going to be a doctor and got in front of blood and said, I'm not doing it, and didn't waste a whole bunch of money. So revised the school day to support learning goals, intentionally planned online courses taught by SHS staff, expanding, embedding the SEL curriculum in more places, refining, expanding a blended model, customizing pathways. I think AVID's a great program. I'm not going to show the YouTube video, but it's there if you want to watch it. But it's a 4-year elective course that students who are first-generation students whose parents did not go to college, they're kind of your lower 30% non-IEP students, supports them into getting them into college. So over a 4-year period. So it's, I've seen other schools that have it and other schools in our areas have it. I think it's a great program. And again, the staff is the key to any of this working. So I can sit up here and talk about it. All the stuff that we talked about was implemented by our staff. It wasn't done on a day-to-day basis by me. It's done on a day-to-day basis by them. Any questions on innovation?
A lot of information.
Yeah. It's not that long. All right, almost done. All right, legacy. I think I've been here for 30 years, and I didn't grow up here, I grew up in Malta, but I really respect Sycamore and the people of Sycamore and what's been done before me. And so I think it's important to honor those people. And so some of the legacy things that have happened here, we have Ing football field, Ralph Quinn baseball field, it's on campus here, the Peter Johnson Hall of Fame, Peter Johnson statue. Maura Moulton, we named the fitness room after her. She wrote the grants. She got that all implemented for us. Kurt Countryman did a lot of the work in the weight room and in the weight program, the actual programming behind it, all the research and into that to make that work. Dr. Feldman was our athletic trainer for over 30 years, volunteered his time to do that, donated a lot of money for us to redo that training room and make it up to date. Marion Elliott Courtyard, obviously another huge donation to change that. The Sheila Munter Student Boardroom, Joe Jordan Soccer Field was named last year. And our next legacy is going to be the Don Claber Counseling Center. I worked with Dr. Hammond, came to me with this idea. Don retired. His last year of teaching was my first year here, so I've known Don for 30 years. And I know he had an impact not just in the school, but he's had an impact in the community. He's had an impact in the board, an impact in Rotary. And I think it's fun to do these things. I also think it's nice to tell their story. And I always say, you got to be a plaque by whatever we honor so people know what's behind it and why we're honoring that person. So this center is dedicated to Don Kleberg, who served as the director of counseling at Sycamore High School from 1978 to 1993. During this time, he also served as senior class advisor, coached various athletic teams and in our community. When Don retired, he served as a member of the Sycamore School Board of Education for 12 years from 2005 to 2017. He's also been an active member of Sycamore Rotary for over 38 years and even serving as the past district governor, and started the SHH Rotary Student of the Month program. So how many of our students have actually been through Rotary because of what Don's created? We're proud to dedicate the Donald Kleberg Counseling Center to Mr. Kleberg in recognition for his personal dedication to the ideals of education and outstanding contributions to the promotion of compassionate relationships between all human beings at SHS and the Sycamore community. That's all I got. Any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you.
Next item would be the superintendent's report.
Well, before I begin, I just want to take a second to, second something that I think, Jim, you mentioned, and Tim talked about a lot. It's staff that makes all this stuff work. We've recognized students in art and in music and in other areas. A student with the perfect ACT score, unbelievable. So just a lot of great stuff tonight. I'm not sure that anything I present is going to be nearly as exciting as that. Hard act to follow, but a lot of great stuff going on in the district. So thank you to Tim, the high school staff here, but staff throughout the district. Jim, as you mentioned, Mr. Kiker couldn't be with us this evening, so I'm going to skip 8.01, go right to 8.02, which is personnel recommendations. We didn't plan this, but I'm going to piggyback kind of off of what Mr. Carlson talked about. So a year ago, I was getting pretty excited about this time of year because we felt like we were coming out of the pandemic and the light at the end of the tunnel seemed to be getting a lot bigger. Lo and behold, it was a train coming in the other direction, and this year didn't quite go the way that we thought it would. However, we're in a more secure position to look at the future now. Really does feel like we're in that endemic stage and that we're moving out. COVID is just something that we're going to live with. I think Mr. Nelson talked about this early in the pandemic. At some point, this is going to become just something that we deal with. And I think we're kind of to that point where we can not set it aside, but kind of look in a different direction. So just like last year, there is reason to be optimistic and excited about the future. And one part of the future is the staffing plans, as Mr. Carlson also talked about. Everything that happens in the schools really is due to our staff. So I need to keep that in mind as we move forward, and this is the time of year when we really need to be finalizing staffing decisions. So I'm going to make some recommendations this evening. There's no official vote, just ask for some direction from the board at the end of my presentation. These recommendations are based on a variety of factors. So first and foremost, we had some known retirements and resignations, although some of that has changed over the last couple of weeks. We're still working through that, but which is always kind of happens this time of the year, I think. Every year, part of our budget meetings has to do with requests from principals, directors, other staff, some of the department chairs. We meet with them. They make some requests. So part of my recommendations is in line with that. Part of my recommendations has to do with financial sustainability. It's really important that we live within our means. So the recommendations tonight have been discussed internally, talked with both Nick and Nicole about that. These are things that we think that we can sustain. There are additional requests that we don't think are sustainable, so those aren't included. It's prioritization too. So of all the requests that we get, of all the things that we think are important as we move into the future, we have to prioritize the direction that we want to go. So my recommendations are based on priority. It's not that everything that we think about or has been asked isn't important, but we have to prioritize our resources. The recommendations are also based on what we know right now and what we don't know right now. So there's always some uncertainty in the future. I have always focused on making decisions based on what I know. I don't like guessing about what the future is going to hold. Whether we're in a pandemic or not, I think it's always important to make decisions based on what you know. And then focused on the future. How can we best position the district for the future? So the first round of recommendations really have to deal with what we knew were known retirements and resignations. Director of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Webster, has announced her resignation. She's moving on to a different position. So that's one of them. Director of Technology, which I'll talk about again in just a second. Principals at North Grove Elementary and West Elementary Schools, and then our communications manager. We'll get some other resignations. Just kind of seems like those things happen in the spring. They're unplanned for. They're changes that impact staff, and they submit a resignation. But these were things that we knew at the time that I developed these recommendations. To go back to the Director of Technology, the only real change I'm recommending in this group is that position become an administrative position. So over the years, it's been a TOSA, what we refer to as TOSA, or a teacher on special assignment. Things have changed in technology. And a lot of that has happened while I've been here. So I can't speak to what it used to look like as much as maybe some of you can, but I know what it looks like now. And we've invested a lot in technology, and that's, I think, one of the silver linings of the pandemic, is we've had some resources to move in that direction. So the Director of Technology, therefore, is really becoming a different position. It's evolved over time. There's a lot more responsibility in terms of financially. There's a very large budget. That's one of the departments that we meet with, one of the directors that we meet with. That budget's probably looked a lot different in the last couple of years than it's looked in the past. Supervising and leading staff within the department. So now that we have a lot more technology in our schools than we've ever had before, there's more responsibility on that person to supervise and lead staff within the department and how technology impacts learning in the classroom. The nature of that position has changed from an organizational standpoint. So again, in the classroom, how does technology impact learning? That looks a lot different now than it used to. Instead of students going down to a computer lab, they have technology with them every day. It's just part of how we operate. I'm going to keep moving forward, but if you have questions along the way, feel free to jump in and stop me. In addition to those recommendations, there are a couple of other recommendations that I'd like to make. Based on our long-term financial plans, we feel that the budget can sustain 2.0 full-time equivalent positions. So when you say 2 full-time positions, sometimes people think, well, that's 2 people, right? It's 2 full-time positions. Well, not necessarily. So in our planning, full-time equivalencies could be a variety of part-time positions that are pieced together and not necessarily the same responsibility, not necessarily the same job, but when you piece 2 half-time positions together, that equals 1 full-time. So not necessarily 2 full-time positions. One of the things that I think is really important, again, is living within our means. So we've put them together in this way because it helps us to be efficient and responsible with resources. Therefore, I'm recommending a combination of, I think there's 1 full-time position and then a variety of part-time positions. Again, these additional positions are in response to needs and requests. They directly impact and support students. Several of the positions are the result of changes in course requests at the high school level. Those fluctuate a little bit on a year-to-year basis. Having worked in a high school before, that's just kind of the nature of how the high school works. Some departments, there's a lot of consistency, and in other departments, there just seems to always be a little bit of fluctuation. So one of the things we've tried to do is take advantage of the opportunity as those course requests have fluctuated a little bit. Where can we reallocate our resources and best support students? So in this round of personnel recommendations, there's about 6 bullets there that I'm just going to go over briefly. Again, if you have questions, let me know. The first is a part-time school psychologist. School psychologists do a lot of work throughout the district, and a lot of times they're moving from one building to another. This is a priority coming from the special education department, adding a half-time school psychologist to kind of balance that load just a little bit. We've had an existing special education teaching position open at South Prairie almost all year. I think it's a .4 position. Really haven't had applicants for that position. We also feel like adding, there's a need to add that .2. It's still going to be a part-time position, so it'll be .6 overall. But we think that's going to be a little bit better, more attractive, but also more importantly, a .6 position gets us a teacher in the building every day, whereas a .4 position didn't necessarily do that. It's not all day, every day, but it's somebody in the building every day for part of the day. Some of you may remember that at a board meeting, gosh, I don't know, Mr. Balser, probably January, we talked about SB 100. And part of that conversation evolved into how we can best support students. We talked about guidance counselors, but we also talked about a dean of students. So one of the things I'm recommending is a full-time dean of students who will work with the counseling center and in the staff there to support students' SEL needs. It would be an administrative position, so it would work in the high school, administrative team. But the way I envision it is very similar to a position I held in the past as a high school assistant principal. I met regularly once a week with the counseling department. So we talked regularly about how students were performing, where there were issues, how I could help from an administrative perspective. But just that collaboration between the counseling center as well as the administration was really helpful. So that's how we envision that. It would be dealing with things like discipline and attendance and things like that, but it would be doing that in conjunction with the counseling center. If students aren't showing up to school or they're showing up late, why is that? There are consequences for that. There's school policies that we'll need to follow, but there's always underlying issues that we need to drill down to. So that's what that position would look like. Recommending that we restructure a couple of positions here at the last few bullet points. So one is restructuring the existing 912 special education coordinator to a 612 special education coordinator, providing support to the middle school student staff, just coordinating some of the special education programs down there. Restructuring the part-time 6-8 instructional coach at the middle school to full-time. The person currently in that position does a great job, but she spends part of her day every day teaching. So it's planning, it's instruction, and it takes her away from supporting the staff and what they do on a regular basis. I think instructional coaches are critical in schools these days. It's one of the most researched based interventions that you can implement. One instructional coach working with staff throughout a building can really impact a lot of different students. So we've got a part-time instructional coach down at the middle school. Would like to see her go to full-time. And then the last recommendation here is restructuring the 912 data specialist to become a 612 data specialist. So we have somebody that serves in that 912 data specialist role. We think we can expand that to 612. He does carry a little bit of an instructional responsibility, but again, part of reallocating resources would cover that piece, so that he's free to work with the middle school as well as the high school. It's unbelievable the kind of work that this gentleman does, Mark Holstein, just generating reports, data for teachers, for administration, just so we can focus on how we can best support students. So we'd like to extend that down to the middle school. There were additional requests that we'll continue to consider. That's just kind of part of the process, and as directors, department chairs, administrators come to those budget meetings, they're always giving us their needs, and we'll continue to consider those requests. We'll also continue to prioritize as we move forward. Again, those the requests that aren't included here, it's not that they were unnecessary or unimportant. It's just that we have to prioritize and live within our means. So one of the other things I talked about was what we know and what we don't know. And at the K-5 level in specific, I was a little reluctant to move forward with some of those requests, just because when we do the boundary study in the coming school year, don't really know how that's going to impact changes potentially at the elementary level. So I'm just a little reluctant to move forward on some of those requests and decisions until we have a better feel for what's going to happen at the elementary level. Once that study is done, we've gone through recommendations and a plan moving forward, and have a better idea of what changes are going to happen, then we can go back to some of the requests that were made and reconsider those. So again, touching base on what Mr. Carlson talked about a little bit, I think these recommendations position the district to focus on the future. And what I had innovation in here earlier. I just got back from a conference this afternoon, and we talked a lot about, it was a superintendent conference that included superintendents from across the country. And we talked a lot about transforming as we come out of the pandemic. And not radical necessarily transformation, but how can we continue to move forward? So I call that transformational innovation, changes that result in growth and improvement. I've never been one that likes to be out on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of the cutting edge, but I think it's important that we accept that change is inevitable. And if we know that that's going to happen, how can we leverage that to our advantage? In order to really focus on innovation moving forward, one of the other recommendations I'd like to make, not in terms of personnel necessarily, but in terms of titles and responsibilities, is add innovation to a couple of existing positions. So the Assistant Superintendent for HR and Educational Programs would become the Assistant Superintendent for HR, Educational Programs, and Innovation. I have to take a breath after I say that.
Yeah.
Might rework it a little bit.
Going to have 3 name tags for that one.
HREP.
The Director of Teaching and Learning would become the Director of Teaching and Learning and Innovation, and the Director of Technology would become the Director of Technology and Innovation. These 3 positions at a leadership level, at the district level, I think are positions that are going to be key and instrumental in terms of planning and then implementing the innovation for the district moving forward. So adding that to their titles kind of identifies that. It demonstrates the district's commitment to growth and continuous improvement. And in parentheses, you might say that it plants the district's flag for the future. In addition to these changes, I think it's important to work with the Director of Communications to focus on how we can incorporate that into our brand. So the district has a brand. As a matter of fact, I had a great conversation with a gentleman yesterday who's in marketing, and we talked about our district's brand, in specific the Sycamore brand. That's recognizable in our community and in our area. So how can we take advantage of that and just add this innovation piece to the existing brand for the district? So that's something that we'll work on too with the next Director of Communications. So what does a revised organizational chart look like with some of those positions that I just mentioned? And if you have binoculars, you might be able to see all the titles that Mr. Reineck would carry. But Board of Education is still at the top. Then it's the superintendent. I work with both Mr. Reineck and Mrs. Stuckert on HR educational programs, and then in the business office. And then as you can see, that filters down a little bit. It is pretty hard to see, but Director of Technology and Director of Teaching and Learning, the Director of Technology and Innovation and the Director of Teaching and Learning and Innovation, as well as the Director of Student Services would fall under Mr. Reineck. Mr. Ekstrom, Mrs. Sheehan, the Director of Transportation, and then one of my favorite people in the district, Sophie, who leads our food service because she shows up with trays of cookies every couple of weeks. Those folks would still work with Mrs. Stuckert. The building principals really are a direct report to myself, so I supervise the building principals, but they're in a unique role because they work with so many different aspects of the district. So while they are a direct report to the superintendent, they also work very closely with predominantly the people that Mr. Reineck works with, Teaching and Learning, Technology, and Student Services. And then at the bottom there, Director of Communications, Director of our Oscar program, Courtney Waltz. Those are both direct reports to the superintendent. So I can go into a lot more detail than that and where everybody else falls underneath of there, but just wanted to give the board an idea of what the organizational chart would look like right now. I believe this is my last slide on personnel recommendations. So finally, growth and improvement include continuously reviewing where we are and planning for the future. With finite resources, we have to reallocate. We have to always be considering how we can reallocate resources as we move forward and change happens. And at some point, reductions are necessary. So again, Mr. Carlson talked about some programs that were in place that are no longer in place for a variety of reasons. Sometimes those are the result of not enough interest or other factors that just cause us to not move forward with those or to end those. But those are opportunities then to look at adding other programs that make sense for the district. So I think it's really clear that I need to be clear with the board, but we need to be clear with the staff and the community that those are just things that are a natural part of change. And as those come up, we'll have conversations about those, and those won't be snap decisions. Those will be decisions that we talk about over a period of time. And again, just important that we're really clear and transparent as we move forward. I'm going to pause here, see if there are any questions for me in regards to the personnel recommendations. Again, no vote on anything, but would love to just kind of have the blessing or the direction from the board to start implementing those changes.
I'm very excited about these changes. I think this is a step in the right direction, and I think that there's some really great opportunities for innovation with some of these restructurings. And I think being prudent with the district's dollar was definitely clearly a priority here too. So I think great job.
Thank you. I can't take credit for all of it. There's a lot of conversation that went into this, but thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that Chris and I got a preview of this with the finance subcommittee. Gosh, the spring break feels like it was forever ago, but about a month ago. And I'd say generally very supportive of the direction that you're suggesting we go in. Obviously, hearing from the counseling department tonight and a myriad of other needs that have been raised over the last year. There's a lot more I think that we'd all like to do, but probably worth noting that obviously the contract negotiations this year have left us a bit thin on extra funding, and with the inflationary pressures that we're probably going to see as a district as our costs go up in other areas, that we don't get that from a tax revenue standpoint for another 2 years. We won't see that budget till what is that, FY24, when we'll finally see, the impact on property taxes and everything, or FY23, when that finally goes through. So we're kind of in this lag period where I know there's so much that we'd like to do, but unfortunately have to be a bit prudent here in the short term. But hopefully all those things stay on there and we do continue to revisit them. My only concern with the director of innovation, and I love the idea, and I think that the district needs to, we've talked about it for years, and I've had conversations with several building principals about, what does it mean to say that we're innovative versus actually showing how we're innovative. And I agree that should be a hallmark of how we want to define ourselves going forward. I get a little overwhelmed by seeing the director of innovation on several name tags because it makes me wonder who's ultimately in charge. Maybe I'm not 100% supportive of the way those titles are being figured out, but I think as long as we've fleshed out what that hierarchy looks like, what the roles and responsibilities look like, and how they're divvied up between those three positions, I think my suggestion during our meeting was maybe to have more of like an innovation committee or team that those three people are members of, as opposed to adding it to all their titles. But either way, I'm very supportive of us making that an explicit initiative that we're branding and focusing on as we move forward.
I would say that it mirrors the direction that I think as a board that we've been moving in, and that it does reflect the direction we want to go in. And I guess I would agree with the comments made before my comments that it would be nice if we had more money. It would be nice if we had a little bit better ability to carry out some of these plans, but I think given our resources and given the reasonable use and stewardship of our resources, this is a good plan to go forward with.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the comments that were made, and we'll continue to be both careful as well as kind of excited about the direction that we'll move. But we'll start to implement these things as soon as tomorrow, and we'll continue to report out on how things are going. 8.03 is the next item under Superintendent's Report. It's an application for tax abatement that really, I think, goes back to a board meeting in, I think it was either November or December when Mr. Borak came in and visited, really focused on the amended enterprise zone agreement. But along with that, there was an application for tax abatement from Nighthawk Video. Nighthawk Video has purchased a building in Sycamore Business Park. They are adding on to that building, a pretty significant addition to that. I think that was included in the board packet. It's commercial property. They have asked for a tax abatement on a 5-year schedule, and it really can happen in one of two ways. Option one is a year one inclusion. So there's a 5-year tax abatement. It starts at 90%, then to 80, 70, 60, and 50% in the subsequent years. It's inclusive because that first year of abatement happens in year one. Option two, not options two, I apologize for that, would be a year one exclusion. So it's still a 5-year tax abatement, but it's 0% in the first year, and then it's followed by 5 years of 90, 80, 70, 60, and 50% abatement. So after considering this, should be another slide, so I apologize. After considering that, we've had some conversation, especially with Mrs. Stuckert, and because it's going to potentially impact taxes, I'm recommending that the board approve the tax abatement. I think it helps to support the economic climate in the community. The impact on the district would be pretty minimal. It's limited to 5 years. If the board chooses to approve it, we would also recommend that we go with option one, get that started, get those 5 years going, and then move on after that's over. So that's my recommendation, but ultimately it's the board's decision, and I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Is there a motion to approve the property tax abatement for Nighthawk Video utilizing option number one?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
This allows us to capture our assessment in the time frame that we needed to.
We don't have that funding formula anymore, right?
No, and this isn't new construction, so actually the 0% doesn't come into play in this,
I want
so.
to make sure we're not leaving anything on the table.
Yep.
Other discussion? Roll call?
DeVito,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes?
Wren,
Yes.
Shiloh,
Yes.
Davy,
Yes.
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Last part under superintendent's report is future focused item. So I chose to talk a little bit about sustainability tonight and how that is happening in the district, how it's happened in the district, and what options we have for moving forward. Seems to be kind of appropriate talking about the future tonight. So just as kind of a starting point, what does sustainability mean? There's probably multiple different definitions out there if you go looking for them. The one I kind of fell on was avoiding the depletion of natural resources to maintain an ecological balance. So how does our school district approach sustainability? There's a little bit of history there. There is a sustainability committee. Hasn't met for a couple of years, thanks to COVID. I think Kathy helped me out with this. One of the last times they were together was actually when they presented to the board in I think April of 19. So it's been a while. The hope is to reform that sustainability committee now that we're kind of coming out of the pandemic and returning to somewhat normal. We have recycled paper in the past. We have vegetable gardens at each of our elementary schools. I didn't know that. But we do have vegetable gardens at each of our elementary schools. And the produce that comes out of those gardens is actually used in the Oscar program, if I remember correctly. So the summer Oscar program takes advantage of that. We've transitioned to LED lighting in the district. I wouldn't say throughout the district quite yet, but that's something that's happening over time. LED lighting is more energy efficient and lower cost for the school district. There was actually a waste audit done at North Grove Elementary. I didn't know about that, but there was an audit done there, and you'll see the results of that here on the next slide. So progress and outcomes, what's happened as a result of our sustainability efforts. Although the committee's been on hiatus since 2019, we would like to resurrect that committee. Unfortunately, we've had to pull back on recycling paper. We had a vendor that came and picked up the paper at no cost to the district. So we gathered that up, they came and picked it up and did us a favor by hauling it away, but we also knew that it was going to be recycled. There wasn't a cost to the district. There is now a cost to the district, so it's become a little bit cost prohibitive, but we'll continue to look at that. One of the things that we did implement, and this I believe was at least partially a result of the waste audit, was going back to reusable trays at North Elementary, North Grove, and at South Prairie. So we had been using styrofoam trays for quite a while. Went back to reusable trays. Now, that's been on kind of hiatus also due to the pandemic at the request of the health department. We will go back to reusable trays at those 3 elementary schools, and you'll see in the next slide that we'd like to expand that a little bit. There is a slight increase to the cost there because there's extra labor. Those trays have to be, make sure they're scraped off clean and those sorts of things before they can be used again, but we believe the payoff is worth it. One of the other things that came out of the waste audit was that another way to reduce the volume of waste at the elementary schools and all of our schools would be to do some communication, education with families and using reusable containers for sack lunches. So I happen to have the opportunity to pack my 6th graders' lunch on occasion, and just recently went from using plastic bags to, for pretzels and potato chips and things like that, to a reusable plastic container. Comes home, we throw it in the dishwasher, gets it used the next day. So that's just one example of how students can help us out too, and that's just a matter of us, communicating that and making sure that students are aware of that. So future possibilities, we'd like to expand the reusable trays at Southeast and at West Elementary schools. The middle school and the high school will certainly be under consideration as well. There have been discussions about composting at North Elementary. I don't know that there are any plans for that necessarily right now, but that's something that we've discussed in the past and also been on hiatus under the pandemic, but something that we can come back to. We're currently considering solar panels. We've talked about that at 1 or 2 meetings so far. Those would help us to generate some electricity, reduce our costs, but also decreases our carbon footprint. So we'll continue to look at that and look at what option might be best for the district moving forward with solar. We don't have anything firm quite yet, but it's something that's still on the table. And then, perhaps recycling or sustainability clubs or organizations, where students can get involved and maybe take a leadership role in that and help kind of spread that message throughout the district. So glad to say that we've got some efforts already underway in terms of sustainability and also opportunities to grow there too. So that's my last slide on my last bullet point. So I'll take a minute here to pause to see if there are any questions, comments, or suggestions.
No, I was the board rep for that committee. I don't think we've met since, or at least I haven't seen any announcements of any meetings since COVID really, but I know one of the other things that was being talked about at that time was the issues around transportation, especially in the winter with parents idling and trying to run an anti-idling campaign, which I don't think is going to get much traction, but you can certainly see cars lined up outside the elementary schools for 45 minutes just running their engines in the afternoon, waiting to be first in line. And if we had maybe a more efficient, pickup system or something, maybe we could help alleviate some of that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that really came up though at the
Funny that you mentioned that, and I wouldn't have thought about that, but there was a big push for school buses. When they pulled up and they stopped at schools to pick up at the end of the day, not to just sit there and idle the whole time, but to turn the engine off, right? Wouldn't have even thought, for parents, but maybe some signage just encouraging them to shut off their engines until school's dismissed, because you're right. You guys all know that they're there early.
Are there any, maybe it's a question for Mark Ekstrom and thinking long-term though, because we don't have any recharging points at any of our schools. And I wonder if that's something that eventually we'll have to, consider having some parking spaces dedicated to that. I don't know, if staff would take advantage of that, or if there's a program out there where, I guess while the government perhaps is funding some of those things to push for more adoption of charging points, if there's a way to get some of those funded by outside sources. Something else we could consider, I guess.
To your point, Eric, too, something that I know was really interesting was the walkers, the number of walkers and sidewalks, so access, particularly North Grove. I know the entire Heron Creek subdivision is separated from North Grove by what's maybe 300 yards. And so it's if we could just put a sidewalk there, you could eliminate a lot of bus routes, probably save, I would imagine, quite a bit in terms of just pure cost from just the buses alone, and then your carbon footprint, encourage more maybe student activity. So to me, I think that's just, and I know there's some more at work there with land ownership, but even just an easement, I mean, if we can have some sort of relationship with the city where, I don't know all the moving parts, but more opportunities like that where we can make walking more accessible for students to the elementary schools, I think that would pay for itself in no time.
I think that's a good point.
Or maybe the park district can put a bike path in there.
Yeah, well, exactly,
Well,
right.
There's
Maybe
portions
they'd
of
have
one already, but
Maybe they'd have better luck than we do.
Okay, that's the superintendent's report for tonight.
Okay. Next item then is open discussion and future agenda items. Open discussion, issues, observations, questions?
I had a couple of requests for future agenda items, and just based on people that came and presented earlier in the year. One is Molly Tucker and the MTSS. She had kind of alluded at her presentation that she'd be back and share with us how the year has gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope to see that. And then the other one is the middle school PLC group. They both presented at one of our workshops, but also sent an email with their information in it, and I'd love to hear from them again and how the year has gone. And I've corresponded a bit with them, and they've also shared they have some ideas for district-wide PLC, and I'd love to hear what those are.
Yeah. There's been a district-level PLC group, basically an admin PLC that's been meeting monthly since the fall. We have a meeting tomorrow morning too, and so we've tried to really take that middle school model and see how we can kind of implement that, something like that at the district level. So yeah, I'll reach out to the middle school PLC group, and then maybe after they're done, can talk a little bit about the district level.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
Other future agenda items? Is there a motion to go into executive session for the consideration of matters related to the appointment, employment, or dismissal of personnel in imminent litigation?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Roll call?
Jones,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes?
Wren,
Yes.
Chilo,
Yes.
Davy,
Yes.
DeVito,
Yes.
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we'll go into executive session, and then we'll return for our final votes. All right, well, we're back in regular session. Is there a motion to accept the resolution authorizing dismissal of part-time educational support personnel as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call?
Wren,
Yes.
Shiloh,
Yes.
Davy,
Yes.
DeVito,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes?
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Is there a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call?
Shiloh,
Yes.
Davy,
Yes.
DeVito,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Wren,
Yes.
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.